What is going on? It is Dylan with Astrodfs, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over the Thursday night showdown on DraftKings and Fanduel. This is between the Bucks and Bills. I don't know how to take this one off of just looking at a lot of numbers, looking at a lot of stats, trends, all that stuff. Really unsure how to take this game, right? Bills obviously a big favorite, just the way that the Bucks have played. But I mean, we just saw the Bills lose to the Patriots. It's a division game. You know, division opponents always play each other harder than non-division opponents, especially a team like Tampa Bay. But, I mean, there's some injuries on Tampa Bay's side that make this one even more interesting. You know, Bills turning the ball over. Tampa Bay's defense getting a lot of takeaways. Their offense not capitalizing. I don't know, but we're going to try to break it down, though. So, going off the most expensive player on both sides is Josh Allen. On FanDuel by a wide margin. Like a wide margin. If you want to play Josh Allen, you're paying $2,500 more than the top pass catcher in Stephon Diggs. Whether DraftKings, it's a $400 difference. On FanDuel, it's a $1,000 pay down on Mike Evans. On DraftKings, it's $1,400. So Mike Evans has got some good value there, especially if you want to do an Allen Diggs stack and run it back with Mike Evans. I believe there's some really good plays out there, some really good value. So let's just go over it. So Josh Allen, I have as a like for this game. Tampa Bay has given up 3 rushing touchdowns to quarterback so far this year, so that's one every other game. We know that Josh Allen has that rushing upside, right? 21% of the red zone rushing attempts have been by Josh Allen. With Damian Harris out, could get some more. I doubt it, but I think 21% is a really good number. 1 out of every 5 carries, he's getting one. And then the Bills wide receivers, tight ends, having some good matchups. Obviously, the tight ends a little more confusing now with the injuries, but wide receivers have a really good matchup for Buffalo's side. So really like Josh Allen. I think he's worth the pay up, especially getting Diggs with some of the value plays that we have. Stephon Diggs, right? 31% of the red zone targets has been to Stephon Diggs. Dawson Knox out, so that could mean Stephon Diggs gets, an uptick for those red zone targets. Tampa Bay giving up 5 touchdowns to wide receivers, and they've only given up 1 to running backs and tight ends so far this year. So it's an advantage for the wide receivers, less on the running backs and tight ends. But Diggs got a great matchup, so I think he's worth the price that you're paying for him on both sites. Mike Evans, 10,000 on DraftKings, 14,000 on FanDuel. Godwin's banged up. We don't know if he's going to play or not. That's going to be something that you watch for. Even if he does play, could be on a snap count, could not be 100%. And we know that Mike Evans has gotten that connection with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield knows you throw the ball to Mike Evans, there's a good chance he's catching it. You just got to hit him, right? But yeah, Mike Evans second on the team in red zone targets. Like I mentioned, it's a great matchup for him of who he is going to see. Another concern is Baker being hurt, but it seems like Baker's going to play. The price point on him, 92 on DraftKings, 13.5 on FanDuel. I don't know if it's really worth it against this Bills defense. It's just not something that really, I don't know, stands out, right? Obviously, he's 4th in DraftKings. On FanDuel, same thing, 4th. I just don't know if he's worth the price point, especially if you're paying up for Allen, Diggs, and Evans, right? I don't know if he's worth that pay up of getting somebody a 4th high pay up with Baker's fantasy output. I don't think it's there, but it is something to watch. Kyle Trask, I would imagine, would be the quarterback if he's not good to go, but I would imagine Baker plays through it and does play. James Cook next I have as a fade. 8,600 on DraftKings, 12.5 on FanDuel. So on both sites, the 5th most expensive player. He splits a lot of the red zone work. Now with Harris out, it's just Tavius Murray. Bucks have played running backs historically, the last 3, 4, 5 years played running backs fairly well. Some years they play them really good. This is one of them. Only 1 touchdown allowed to running backs so far this year. So James Cook splitting work, right? Getting some receiving work this year, averaging about 2 to 3 receptions. His yards are up there for receiving when he gets them, but his rushing is very inconsistent as well, so that's something concerning. And just in this matchup, Vita Vea might be out for Tampa Bay. It seems like he will be out, so that's something to watch as well. Obviously, he's a big part of that rush defense, so that's something to watch. You could see a more likeness towards James Cook, but overall, I think for the price point you're paying, it's really hard to afford James Cook and some of these top names. Next is Rachaad White, though, at $8,000 on DraftKings, $12,000 on Fanduel. So both sides so far matching who they're pricing, right? I really like him in this matchup. I think he's one of those guys to where if you're fading, Josh Allen, Diggs, Evans, and you're looking for another guy in that mid to high tier range, he's the guy to go to. 73% of the red zone rushing attempts have been Rachaad White, and 11% of the red zone targets have been Rachaad White. So getting a decent amount of red zone work when they do get down in the red zone, right? That's something that's also concerning. Bills allowing 24.9 DraftKings fantasy points per game against opposing teams' running backs, allowing running backs to average 5.2 yards per attempt. Now, if you look at Tampa Bay stats, they're not that good. I think they're a bottom 5 team in yards per attempt, so that's something concerning. But a guy that gets a majority of the workload in a game to where I think if Baker's hurt, you see White get a couple more targets, right? You're not going to expect someone like Baker with the knee to really rush. So look for someone like Rachaad White to really excel in this matchup. I think he's a good run back piece too if you really like Buffalo. Chris Godwin, we're going to watch the injury news. I'm not going to assess it right now. I would lean towards a fade though on Chris Godwin, just being banged up. A little bit rougher matchup just based off of where he's going to line up at in his price point too. So Chris Godwin I have it as an injury, but lean towards fade if he does play. Gabe Davis is a like for me. I do think he's a bit pricey for what the output he's put out, right? He's a boomer bust player. He's one of those guys. Third on the team in red zone targets. Like I mentioned, Dawson Knox out. So Gabe Davis, Diggs I still think can. Dalton Kincaid. Some of these other guys on this team could see some more targets with Dawson Knox being out, but it's not like Dawson Knox has seen a crazy amount of targets. It was just red zone targets, so that what opens up some opportunities. So Gabe Davis is a guy I like, right? 6,800 on DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel. I think he's a good play, right? Not a great play, not an amazing play, but he's a boomer bust player. This is a boomer bust type of game. In all honesty, the Bills could easily score, 24 plus points and get to 30 against his Tampa Bay team, or we could see them struggle again and get less than 17, right? So Gabe Davis is one of those guys that fit in that play style. So I definitely want to get exposure with Gabe Davis. He's either going to really, really help your lineups or really hurt your lineups. Tyler Bass, a like on both sites as well. 5,400 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel. Bit pricey on DraftKings, right? 5,400. More expensive than Dalton Kincaid. More expensive than the defenses. That one's not as surprising. But Tyler Bass is averaging 7.4 points a game as a kicker. That's really high for a kicker. Tampa Bay's defense is the best red zone team in football. So the amount of times that they allow a touchdown is not high. So that could lead to more field goals for someone like Tyler Bass as well. So I really like Tyler Bass. And then Dalton Kincaid on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel. Like I had to look multiple times, but he's 7,500 on FanDuel. I don't know what happened there. Maybe I did miss it, but 7,500 for Dalton Kincaid is a crazy value, especially with Dawson Knox being out. It's a good matchup for him. I really like it. Obviously, Tampa Bay has some good linebackers there, but Dalton Kincaid going to line up in the tight end position probably a little more. Still going to see some wideout, I would imagine, as well. Like I said, big like on DraftKings, but a huge value on FanDuel. Chase McLaughlin is a like for me. Same thing. Tampa Bay is really bad in the red zone. Bills are really, their defense is really good in the red zone of stopping teams from scoring, which means someone like him gets more kicks. So both kickers I like in this matchup. I already took over 3.5 total field goals in this game. I really like that in this matchup. And then we go to the Bills defense at 4,400 on DraftKings, 10,000 on Fanduel. So a bit pricey on Fanduel, right? Bills second in the league in sacks, but Tampa Bay second least amount of sacks given up. So that's something. Like I said, it's a boom or bust game. That's what we're getting. And Tampa Bay's defense is second in drives ending in a takeaway behind Tampa Bay's defense. So really quick before we get there, Trey Palmer on DraftKings 4,200, on FanDuel 7,000. I have him as a value on FanDuel. DraftKings, I'm not really there for the price point. I only like him if Godwin's out though. I would only like him on DraftKings if Godwin's out. On FanDuel, I still think that's a value nonetheless. Obviously, he's not going to see as much targets, but I think he could see an uptick in targets if Chris Godwin's out, right? But just not there for me on DraftKings. There's some other names down here you could see that I like more. But yeah, the Buccaneers defense, 36 on DraftKings, so you're paying 800 less than the Bills defense. FanDuel 1,500, so you get a big discount on Tampa Bay's defense for rightfully so, though Buffalo has a good offense. I know it didn't show in the game against New England. There's times they've struggled this year, but overall, I feel like they still have a really good offense. Bills 5th most turnovers per drive, right? Tampa Bay first, the most drives that end in a takeaway. So that's something to consider. Is I would imagine Bills get some points, but there could be a drive where, Tampa's defense gets a pick six. They get a couple picks, a couple fumbles, stuff like that. Not saying that they're going to get 4 takeaways or anything, but those are numbers to consider. The points you get off of turnovers, sacks, stuff like that. They're not a big sack team, but those points add up and make up for points given up. So I like both defenses in this one. Like I said, this is one to where defenses can be in the winning lineup, or defenses are not going to get you a lot of points. It's the way this game is. It's a very tough game to kind of look at and see what's going to happen. So K. Dotton is the next guy on my list at 3,000 on DraftKings. FanDuel, he's pricey, right? Dalton Kincaid 7,500 and K. Dotton's 8,000. So I'd rather go for Dalton Kincaid in more lineups than I would K. Dotton, right? In the game where last week, Matt Milano was out for Buffalo, and we saw New England's tight ends have, I'd say, a fairly good game. K. Dotton not been a high target guy for Tampa Bay, so it's not like I'm expecting him to get a lot, but he is at that value price for me at 3,000 on DraftKings. Like I said, FanDuel, I'd say 8,000 is value enough, but like I said, when you consider like Trey Palmer there, Dalton Kincaid is there, Devin Tompkins is there. Like, there's some other names I'd rather get to than K. Dotton in lineup. So, just not there for me. Dawson Knox, unfortunately, out on IR. Devin Tompkins is a name to look at. DraftKings 1,600, FanDuel 6,500. 15 targets in the last 4 games for him. 3rd on the team in red zone targets. Like, if Chris Godwin's out, that's their number 1 red zone target guy. So, I'll look for someone like Devin Tompkins to get some more red zone targets if that's the case, even if Godwin's in. Probably not going to be 100%, so that's something to really consider on both sides, just very cheap. And then last but not least is Joel Wilson. He's the only other tight end on the Bills roster, right? Not active 53, just practice squad and the active roster. He's the only other tight end than Dalton Kincaid, so he's another value. I don't know what to expect out of him. I really don't. We saw Morris get a touchdown in the game that he got in, right? Gets a target and a touchdown. But with Dawson Knox being out, I believe Joe Wilson, unless something else changes. But I believe it will be Joe Wilson getting in, and he should get a good amount of snaps as well. Like, Dalton Kincaid's going to play tight end, but I'm expecting Joel Wilson to get a decent amount of snaps, and he's the men on both sides. So hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys did, please leave a like and subscribe. That means a lot to me. If you guys are interested to get these sheets on the showdowns and the main slate, click the link in the description. It will take you to our Discord. And if you have any questions or want to know what we offer, just feel free to DM me. And I will see you guys in the next one.